This is Dr. Kevin Blau from Blau Family Chiropractic here in Portage, Wisconsin. And here with me again is Patricia Huggett with the best version of you. She's a nurse of 25 years, an RN, and now is here to help with health coaching for people with challenges, a varying array of challenges. But today, we've gone through a number of things with her, but we're going to kind of go through a seasonal thing right now. Gardening. We should all be thinking about that right now, from probably mid-May to beginning of June-ish is a real good time to be thinking about getting your garden in. Probably should have planned that a little sooner if you're going to start from seedlings, but if, a lot of the places locally will have plants for you that you can get started. And Patricia, you have a love for gardening as well. So I'm going to have you kind of maybe speak to the newbies out there, the people that go, I don't know if I can do this. That seems like a lot of work. Is it really worth all the work? All of those kind of things, and maybe give them a little primer on what you suggest to your clients that you work with, or even maybe you've experienced yourself. So I'll let you take it away and give us a little update on gardening 101.
Well, my gardening experience, I've been gardening for about 10 years. Prior to that, I managed to kill almost every plant that came around. So I didn't have a green thumb to start with. And the reason I stuck with it is because I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction from eating the food that I've grown. And gardening is great from a health perspective because you are growing what you eat, and that is more nutritious, it's fresher than what you can get at the grocery store. Other than a farmer's market, you probably can't get a fresher vegetable than what you can grow.
I have a question, and this is maybe somewhat obscure, but I think it's kind of an interesting thing to know. When you're growing your garden and you're growing it in the location that you live, you're gaining the nutrients in the place that you're living. And I know some people talk about that you should eat what has been grown in your local area. It's better for your body because you're dialed in or tuned in to the ground, whatever you want to call it. And it's better for you, to eat things that have been grown locally or maybe right in your backyard. Is there any validity to that, or do you ascribe to that?
Well, we have a problem in Wisconsin. You can't grow what you eat year round.
Right.
So then you have to get your fresh food from someplace else, or you have to preserve what you've grown during the summer. Yeah. So
I know a lot of people, I'm German descent, so here you are. They brought a lot of those things to Wisconsin, right? A lot of German immigrants here. They had the root cellar, they had the sauerkraut, they had all these ways, and that might be for another class talking about how you deal with your produce. But to be able to preserve some of this stuff, whether it be freezing, salting, whatever you do with food to preserve it. But maybe we'll talk about that later in the year, what we're going to do with all this stuff we're going to put in. So where would you start, Patricia? A new person, I don't know what to do. I think I like something. Maybe that's the place to start. Something that you like to eat might be a good place to start. Or do you start with healthier things? Like I want to eat healthy, and so I want to be able to eat fresh maybe initially, but then maybe I want to preserve. So maybe speak to the new people. How do I get started with being healthy in mind?
Well, you definitely don't want to grow something that you don't want to eat.
That would seem obvious, right?
Yeah. Because if you grow something that you hate, there's no point in doing that. You're not going to want to continue gardening if you're growing stuff you don't like. So definitely grow stuff that you like. And some things are easier to grow than others, like cherry tomatoes are easier to grow than a slicing tomato. So maybe start with a cherry tomato. Stuff like spinach, onions, garlic, summer squash, cabbage, kale, Swiss chard are easy to grow. Not everybody likes all that stuff, but if you I have discovered that cabbage loves to grow in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
So the other thing that I've learned over the years is don't try to grow something that's not for the area that you live in, because you're fighting a battle you're going to lose. You
Yeah.
have to grow stuff that your area likes to grow in. I mean, I wouldn't try to grow a lemon tree in Wisconsin. It's just
Yeah.
not going to work.
Even if you like them, right? Yeah, it
Even if
doesn't
you
matter.
love them, it's just not going to work. So it's
Not
going to
gonna
be
work.
very frustrating, counterproductive.
Yeah.
So, and I had the interesting experience with this late frost that we had, and I discovered that there's a ton of vegetables that will survive a frost like we had in May. 26 degrees will not kill broccoli. It won't kill cabbage or cauliflower, chard or lettuce or onions. I had brand new little onions, little starts that I put in the ground a week or so before.
Yeah.
Week or so before the frost, and they got burned a little bit at the tips, but they're perfectly fine. They're growing like crazy. They didn't, it was just a little hiccup that was hardly even a hiccup for
Yeah.
them. So, and I've also discovered that I started gardening in California. So it's very different here, and I'm learning Wisconsin. And it's like, I'm amazed by the vegetables that are cold hardy, and the fact that something like a fava bean will not die until it goes to like 10 degrees. So you can actually start gardening in Wisconsin earlier than typically people do, with
Yeah.
stuff that will tolerate the cold. Fava beans, kale. So it's just, it's a learning process.
Yeah. Well, and what I like about having these cold weather or cold weather kind of plants, we've found over the course of years is we do second crop. So late in the summer, we can go at it again, and they can handle it. It's a little tough at the beginning because it's really warm, but they thrive if you can catch a cooler end of the summer. They'll thrive going in, and you get a second crop of stuff. Our kids just have to eat a lot of broccoli. We do a lot of broccoli. We also do a lot of onions, so they're in the ground, right? So these things can last in the ground. That's a way to preserve them. Just leave them in the ground for a long time. I mean, they'll be in there for a while. We do the tomatoes. We like doing tomatoes. We like to do all the stuff that you do to tomatoes, whether it's stewing them or salsa and all those fun kind of things. So obviously then you need some peppers, right? So if you're into this Mexican food, you want to do these, you kind of look at all the ingredients. You can plant most of this stuff in your garden. And I was in Mexico for a mission trip, and it was really fun. They'd pull everything out of the garden and just mash it up in their little, whatever they call this little pig thing, and they started mashing up, and they had everything fresh. And you can do this most of the summer, probably from July on. You can do that. A lot of these things are already coming in. So sometimes it's just a matter of what kind of foods you like. How do you like to put them together? Do you like salads? Do you not? Do you like chili? What do you like chili? Do you got a whole bunch of stuff you can do to make chili? Everybody likes that in Wisconsin, right? Chili, everybody likes that. So you can get a lot of that in your garden. So what do you like if you want to go ease of planting? We've found that growing seeds is a frustration for us, whether it's because we have 9 kids at home and they tip stuff over, and invariably it just happens. So we've moved to the easy mode. We go and get the plants, so getting your tomato plants, getting your onions, and some of these starter plants seem to be easier for us. It's still work, still a lot of work. It's got to be put in the ground, right? But that for us, that seems easy. But maybe you can speak to some of these cold weather plants, because some of these you can put in as seeds, right?
Yeah, you can put them in as seeds. You also can potentially start spinach in the fall, or I've spent a little bit of time around Bill Links, and he was saying that you can plant your spinach in February. Just put it on your snow, and as the snow melts, it will plant itself.
Really?
Which is pretty cool.
I might have to try that. Maybe something to consider, and this happened to us because we built a new house, and they took all the ground off. And we found out we didn't have any topsoil, literally. It seemed so. We have clay, So we didn't get to plant a whole lot of root plants. They just didn't work, So having good soil is important, and maybe knowing your soil type might help as well. It can create a lot less frustration. Can you speak to that a little bit? Maybe just soil type and maybe what you think, what kind of plants maybe thrive in that and what maybe don't?
Well, soil is definitely an issue. Having organic material in your soil helps keep it moist and also helps keep it from being tightly packed. It also encourages worm activity. And whenever you have worms in your soil, you have diverse, healthy soil, diverse microbe healthy soil. So definitely, you need to know what kind of soil you have. You need to know what kind of pH you have in your soil. And that starts getting complicated, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to scare somebody off, because you can just go to the garden center and get a little probe that you can stick in your soil, and it'll tell you the moisture content. It'll tell you the pH. You can also measure the temperature of your soil, so you know when the temperature's right. You can look up, at what temperature you plant stuff. I wouldn't plant my tomatoes in March because they love the warm weather. So you need to kind of look at this. It's a little bit more complicated in Wisconsin because of the cold, but it's actually, I'm finding it fun because it means you're looking at your plants differently. I personally like it cold. I don't like it hot. So I would love to start my garden earlier next year. With stuff that will tolerate the cold.
What my experience being here a number of years, I grew up here. Boy, we planted on Mother's Day, and that was always kind of our little rule of thumb. And that'd be great. Maybe Mom didn't always like it, but the point is, or at least my wife didn't always like that. But we got froze out a number of times, and so we made a concession. Hey, it's going to be Memorial Weekend or after. And I always thought we would lose on that, but you really don't, depending on what you're planting, because there's a certain temperature in the ground that things kind of germinate and kind of make their move. And many times, especially tomatoes, you catch up with everybody else that put them in early. They do. The warm weather, that's a warm, loving plant. Your early plants, like you mentioned before, kind of, I call it your salad plants, kind of, your lettuces and kale and spinach. They love that cold stuff. And that's, you'll listen to a lot of people, they'll be putting that in early. We have a co-op that comes in here, and they have food shares. And so they bring it in, and it's all those for the first month, like in not April, but April to May is all of those salad plants, right? They're all growing really good. I know some of them have greenhouses. We won't get into greenhouses, but what would you recommend for the new person? Do they till up the soil, till up the sod, and put it in the ground, or go for a couple planters and kind of see what happens that way?
There's a lot of ways to approach it. I mean, you can start out in pots. You can grow a lot of stuff in pots, and that's a great way to start. You can do raised beds, or you can go directly in the ground. Whatever you do, you're going to have to protect it, because everyone else in the animal kingdom is going to want to help themselves to your salad bowl that you're growing, or your broccoli, or whatever, whether it's the deer or the rabbits, or even a groundhog or
deer.
Deer.
Raccoons, they're all out there.
Raccoons. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, they love that stuff. So there's so many reasons that you can be frustrated with gardening. I mean, we just went through a bunch of them, just understanding soil type, understanding weather, understanding your plants, understanding the varmints, understanding nature. There's so many things. I don't know, I guess what would be maybe the top 3 or 4 things, if you like it, what would be a good start for people that live in town I know in Portage here we have a garden, a shared garden space on Airport Road. It's not far from my office, and it's all fenced in with like a 10-foot high. It's a community garden, and people are in there and they got their little sections and doing their thing. But for people in town, many times they don't want to dig it all up. Takes a little bit of equipment, a little hard work. You're recommending some pots or raised boxes or something can be easily put together, or even a plastic pot. You can put a lot of things in there. What would be your top maybe 5 things that a new person could do that seems to be pretty well liked throughout as far as food?
I would pick something you like to eat. I would do, I tend to do a small amount rather than a large amount, and I would start in pots. It just
Okay.
depends on where. That's how I started, in pots. And sometimes you have beginner's luck and things work really well to start with.
Yeah.
And then the next time you try it, things don't go so well. So you just have to start out with something you like, start out small, and bear in mind that you're going to have to protect it.
Yeah, and I think you forget that. These are things that as you go into it new, you go, I'm just going to put it in the ground and it comes up, right? Well, yeah, like you said, you might get lucky. I call that a little bit of luck, but it takes time, and I always like to use the analogy of gardening. And I'm going to do that this year on my Facebook page. I'm going to take a picture of my garden every week and see how it grows. And this is very analogous to our health, right? There are many things that can attack our garden, our health. And you got to keep weeding, and you got to nurture these things. And they need the right soil. Again, they need to be protected. They need to be planted at the right time of year. I mean, there's just so many things. There's a season for everything. And that's why I really enjoy gardening. I like working with my hands. As a chiropractor, I work with my hands, but I get another way to express myself in the garden. It's fun, and I get to eat something. I mean, it's like so great. We have 9 children, so we do a lot of preserving of things. So we've gone through a lot of different ways of preserving, from freezing to canning to drying to just eat it right now, right to the table. All those kind of things are important to preserve as much of the nutrient value of the food. And again, maybe we can have you back later trying to understand how we're going to process all this, maybe later in the summer, where we can get the maximum value out of our food based on your family or your household setup. You might be single. Maybe that looks different than a family of 9 where we got a root cellar and we got stuff piled up and in this root cellar at 50 degrees. It's kind of a neat little thing. So if there are any questions, feel free to share, like, or put anything in the comments. Patricia also has a Facebook page as well. Check her out there if you have questions about her coaching that she has available for our community and beyond. I'm assuming you do Zoom calls as well, or do you do in-person visits or consultations?
I basically do things via Zoom.
Okay, so that's where she has the availability. I mean, you have 25 years of experience of being in the healthcare system and knowing that there's might be a better way. So she's going to help you find the better way, right? To be the best version of you, whatever that is. And so we need more of this. We need to encourage this in our community and utilize these type of services, or else we will not press our culture forward. And we need to press it forward in prevention, but also thinking of being healthy and maintaining that health all along, just like a garden, right? And so, hey guys, I encourage you all, guys and gals, families, to go out and do a garden and see how it works. Share with us. Maybe take pictures and share with us. I'm going to share my garden all the way through the summer and hopefully have comments for you to see what this looks like. We have a big garden. Don't do what we're doing. Big garden, big, huge garden. But I encourage you to do that. This is part of hope and healing. Taking some of your time to work and put your hands in the soil. There's so many benefits to this that, again, at the other end, you get the food. And if you want to plant a few flowers and have the beauty of flowers, that's fun as well. And I encourage you to do that and see the health benefits of gardening. It's really a pretty big deal. Any parting words course, regarding your experience with gardening and what you challenge our listeners to do.
Actually, getting your hands dirty improves your microbiome in your gut. So that's another good reason to get out and get your hands dirty in the dirt.
Yeah, my dad said you had to eat a lot of dirt to be 6 foot tall. So I'm 6'1", so I ate a few, ate a little bit. So, and I grew up on a farm. So I think getting your hands dirty is important, and the microbiome and the gut bacteria and all these things that you learn to live in the world with, you can be symbiotic. You can work with the ground and all the things there and with other people really easy. So hopefully everybody out there, Patricia and myself have dropped a little gold for you and encourage you to grow a garden. You got the time. Many of you have had time to plan for this. So now just do it. Until next time, we hope you have hope and healing, and again, become the better or best version of yourself through these different activities that will engage your family and your community into the future. Appreciate it, everybody, and be well.